Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. You join me here in the Museum of Pre-Lapsarian History, the summer event that's going on right now, but that is not what this video is about. This video about the fact that we've been contacted by the Youthful Naturalist for the second part of evolution, so let's go see what this is. Not long after your most recent meeting with the Dillman Club, you find a peculiar missive in your letterbox. The envelope is sticky. The paper is damp. It smells like the Z. And also like extremely cheap liquor. You have to peel the pages very carefully apart to avoid ripping them. Just below your address, the author has sketched a small apple. Well, let's read the waterlogged letter. Luckily, the ink hasn't run too badly. You can still make out the words. I wanted to thank you again for accepting me as a passenger in Klein. You could have keel-hauled me. You didn't. Now it's my chance to return the favour. My history with the Dillman Club, I'll be the first to admit, is hardly flattering. You must know about my dismissal by now, and I trust you'll understand why I don't discuss it with simply anyone. But an opportunity in connection with this history has presented itself. In short, how do you feel about immortality? The Dillman Club moves slowly. You can wait for them, or you can join me for drinks at the Medusa's Head. With regards, your eternally grateful stowaway. We can go to the Medusa's Head to meet the Youthful Naturalist. Let's travel. I've actually forgotten where the Medusa's Head is. That's the blind helmsman. Uh-oh. The Medusa's Head, here it is, Watchmaker's Hill. The stamping, shouting, raucous, rowdy tavern on Watchmaker's Hill, where the cheery man holds court. Let's have drinks with the Youthful Naturalist. It's another unlucky night at the Medusa's Head. The card sharks can smell blood. They're out in numbers, playing games that don't end peacefully. Sitting far from the gambling carriage, you find the Youthful Naturalist reading the structure and distribution of coral reefs. He doesn't even blink when a bottle smashes into the wall behind his head, or when an arm wrestling competition at a nearby table evolves into a knife fight. Let's join him for a pint. There you are, he calls out. Pull up a chair, have a drink, it's on me. So glad you could make it, he says with a roguish smile. I'll never forget the compassion you showed me at Z. I've had spills, shall we say, in the past, especially during my earlier work with tidal pools on Mutton Island. Deep water doesn't particularly agree with me. He's been busy since his return to London. Even in this boisterous tavern, he lowers his voice so nobody can hear. One good turn deserves another, and I've been gathering intelligence. I know we can help each other. We joined the same club, after all. What a magisterial lager. What? Brewed from the waters of the Evenlode, under the nose of the law. A grinning judge graces the label. His honour must not have a sense of smell. Interesting. So let's ask him about the Dillman Club. His studies must be radical indeed for the club to have banished him. I've done my research. Have you? Our meeting was never a coincidence. But this is how I have to work these days, cutting deals under the table, moving behind the scenes. The Dillman Club makes things so difficult. They're dragging their feet, aren't they? Despite accepting your membership with suspicious speed. I know. Trust me, I know. Once upon a time I stood where you're standing now. Then I learned how to walk on my own. I felt like a Z creature crawling onto land for the very first time. He leans across the table. Would you like to learn how to walk? Splinters fly as a chair cracks over a debtor's head. This is quite the place for a meeting. Let's listen to his proposition. As lovely as this conversation has been, he invited you here to talk business. Very well, cards on the table, he says with another winning grin. Metaphorically, that is. I avoid gambling. I also avoid Orchard House. But you, milady, can get inside, and the Dillman Club keeps records. There's one file I'd love to reopen. It's from an old experiment. They deemed it too unlawful to pursue. Too unlawful, can you imagine? If you dig it up, I guarantee you'll find it educational. He tells you how to locate the file, but he doesn't elaborate on the experiment. You can wait and wait and wait for the club, or you can join me on dry land. There's a whole world up here that they don't want anyone to know about. So we need to go to Orchard House on Ladybones Road. Back we go to Ladybones Road. Revisiting the Orchard House, the Youthful Naturalist has requested a file from an old experiment. The library at Orchard House is open to most club members, but the secret archives are less easily accessible. In fact, you should know they exist. But the naturalist has told you a few things you shouldn't know. He has promised to tell you even more after you locate the file. So we have two options. We can report to the implacable detective. Would it be wise to reveal what you've learned? How would your patron react? Or we can try and sneak into the secret archives. I feel like I want... Do I want to tell them, or do I want to just do it behind their back? Let's stay loyal to them for now. Let's see if we can pass this persuasive check. The implacable detective always takes impeccable notes, but not today. She closes her notebook and sets it aside. The research that he's looking for is mine. Now that you know it exists, you'll eventually find out the rest. I know you will, because I know you. That's why I chose to sponsor you. When you want to learn something, you bend your mind to the task until it's done. That's precisely what the Dillman Club needs. In the library, he pulls a book from a shelf. What you learn this time, however, may displease you. The bookcase swings open to reveal a hidden staircase. Down you go. As you walk down the stairwell with your patron, you pass numerous doors leading to other rooms. Inside one, you glimpse the shell of regret suspended in a great glass tank, which is brimming with luminous golden fluid. Tendrils float languidly, attached to the shell, but the unlikely florist shuts the door from the inside before you can see any more. The implacable detective clears her throat. Right this way, to the archives, no detours. Well, let's search the secret archives for the file. Here, says the detective, leading you straight to the spot. Cabinets line the archives, filled with studies conducted by different club members over the years. Some are successes, but most are failures. You're looking for a failure. The file is numbered, just as the Youthful Naturalist said it would be. You recognize the implacable detective's handwriting, but you can't decipher her notes easily. The diagrams, the anatomical illustrations suggest scientific impossibilities. They are impossibilities, says the detective. Take the file, learn for yourself why we focus on the garden. You will waste your time, but you won't waste our funding. If you pursue this research, you'll have to do it with your own money. Damn. And we gained one volume of collated research. Let's see if we can find the Youthful Naturalist. He's not at the Medusa's head when you return, but a toothless brawler saw him leave with a giggling charwoman. When you track down the charwoman, she tells you that they parted ways on Flowerdene Street, where he was haggling with a disreputable landlord for lodgings. And the landlord, when you interrogate him, directs you to some very disreputable lodgings. The Youthful Naturalist is staying in the worst rookery in fallen London. So let's show him the file from the Dillman Club. In order to enter the Flowerdene rookery safely, you'll need a password. Luckily I have one. Not sure where I got that from. Step into the wrong room and you might just get a dagger in your back. But a shifty-eyed urchin accepts your password and guides you through the rookery. avoiding makeshift honey dens and certain dark stairwells. The youthful naturalist smiles with delight when he sees you. He slams shut the book he was reading, Insectivorous Plants, and leaps from his pallet, inviting you into his squalid flat as though you were royalty returning to a palace. When you deliver the file, he practically bows and scrapes to show his gratitude. I knew you'd finagle a way to get it. His flat in the Flowerdene Rookery is dilapidated. His research materials, on the other hand, would inspire envy in a university dean. He has acquired numerous banned texts, including a few that were never published. His desk, one broken leg replaced by stacked journals, is covered with pages that are covered with calculations. If the Ministry of Public Decency saw even one diagram, it'd condemn him to New Newgate for 10 lifetimes. So let's study this file we brought. The handwriting is difficult to read, and the research itself is dizzying. It cross-references multiple other studies that you'll need to compile and analyze too. It takes 5 volumes of collated research. Luckily I have that too. And the patent scrutinizer. The implaceable detective is Concord Square's creative, deductive mind. Her logical powers can shatter barriers that most scholars wouldn't even recognize as barriers. The youthful naturalist, however, guides you through the academic jungle with his own razor-sharp intellect, clearing a path like an explorer wielding a machete. Diverse disciplines intersect, overlap, and entangle themselves in these notes. Principles from the red science extend into the shapling arts, and the shapling arts twist teratomacy and ontological cartography into a single braid. Systems are represented here that one might assume were circulatory, if their annotations didn't suggest something else. Intriguing, but this still isn't the full picture, says the youthful naturalist, straining to read with the patent scrutinizer. Where is it? Where is it? Aha, here's the ticket. He jabs one sheet with an index finger. That's where she stopped, and that's where we should start. Hunter's Keep. Hunter's Keep? Really? I know there is some shenanigans at Hunter's Keep because of Sunless Seas. What do the implaceable detective's notes have to say about this tiny island? Oh, her notes don't say much, only that she docked there after a scientific voyage because she was too frightened to bring her discovery back to London. I extrapolated the frightened part, but believe me, I'm right. Here it is. He pulls a sketch from the file. You can't determine if the sketch depicts something organic or inorganic, but it resembles a tentacle. It's a key, explains the youthful naturalist. The key to unlocking the cage that imprisons us all. She dragged up a few, but she rejected the lot. Left them on Hunter's Keep. You heard about this key before? I don't think I have. Let's discuss the next step in our research. I have a small favour to ask, says the youthful naturalist. Teensy, I swear. This file will take weeks to fully analyse. I'll get busy. But in the meantime, you have a vessel. You wouldn't mind popping by Hunter's Keep, would you? If you happen to find a stone tentacle key out there, it would be terribly convenient for our research. Bring me one. We'll unlock the world's secrets together. If you don't already have a stone tentacle key, I don't think I do, you can sail to Hunter's Keep to obtain one. You may have to spend some time on the island to discover the key's location. A stone tentacle key? Hang on. I don't think I do. Stone... Wait. I do! I must have done that a long time ago. I have absolutely no memory of that whatsoever. I do vaguely remember spending some time on Hunter's Keep. There are so many things in this particular story that I'm lucky that I have at this point. Working with the youthful naturalist, do I just go back since I have the key, or do I have to go to Hunter's Keep anyway? No, we can deliver the stone tentacle key. Okay, so I felt bad about not going to get this. It turns out you get this from fishing in the well, or just generally messing with the well on Hunter's Keep. I do remember doing this. You have to become friends with the sisters and you discover the secret stories of Hunter's Keep. I did that a long time ago. But if you fish in the well, you should be able to get a stone tentacle key. So let's deliver the stone tentacle key. It is, according to the implaceable detective's notes, extremely dangerous. What was that? You found one? Excellent, says the youthful naturalist. He seems rather distracted, shoving books and journals into a suitcase. He already has another suitcase packed, but it springs open, scattering documents everywhere. Then he's on his hands and knees, cursing as he scrambles to collect them again. Oh, I'm sorry, you're probably used to being congratulated. Well done on the voyage. You did go on a voyage, right? Would you like to go on another? It turns out that I haven't paid some bribes. I need to leave town immediately. A typical academia. Put to sea at Wolfstack Docks. Okay, where are we going? Where are we going? It appears the youthful naturalist is on the run to Wolfstack. Good thing we have that boat. Put to sea. Into the captain's cabin. And here we go, smuggling the youthful naturalist. He's waiting for you at the dock with his suitcases packed. Too scandalous for my own good, but I know exactly where to go. I have an old mentor who died in the tomb colonies. If he's still dead, which he probably is, then I'm sure he'll let me hide out. Just until things settle down, I can pay for my passage with information. I mean, okay, I don't think I've ever been to the tomb colonies without having scandal. Chart a course to the tomb colonies. It's the traditional destination for Londoners who wish to avoid a scandal. And I needed a relatively safe Z-lane for this, which you needed 10 Z-legs and a puzzling map to make. Before leaving, the youthful naturalist says goodbye to the giggling charwoman who is waiting with him. He whispers into her ear. She giggles again, passing him a parcel that looks remarkably like a wrapped book. The professor will never miss it, she says. After this tender scene has concluded, he blows her a final kiss from the gangway. Then he turns towards you. I meant what I said, I have valuable information. Why don't we go aboard? I know where to rustle up the most lovely tinned eels, if you're in the mood for a sandwich. So, it's information I was already going to tell you, says the youthful naturalist, chewing his eel sandwich with contentment. That doesn't make it less valuable. Stick with me and you'll be rolling in secrets. How do you think I acquire so much knowledge, anyway? By trading knowledge, and other things too, but mostly knowledge. Let's discuss this valuable information. If he's going to barter with secrets, perhaps he could hand some over. I have an ambition. I want to change, and that's why I came to the Neath, but it wasn't easy. I've lost friends, I've made enemies, I've been thrown into prison, but I always escape. And I plan to escape more than prison, not by trekking across the Elder Continent. The Dillman Club can keep their precious fruit, if they ever find it. I'm going to search somewhere else, somewhere deeper. With this, he says, lifting the stone tentacle key. I'll break whatever laws I have to break. Man-made, divine, Concord Square is the least of my concerns. And the church, he laughs. The church, no matter what crimes I commit, I'll never be more hypocritical than a certain bishop we both know. In particular, I've been studying Medusae, continues the youthful naturalist. You don't have any sauce for this sandwich by chance? Well, never mind, that can wait. But yes, Medusae, jellyfish, aren't bound by our biology. You want to know a secret? Our biology is just another prison cell, and every cell door has a key. You understand where I'm going with this. It would be informative to open a few doors, wouldn't you say? Okay, so we can either express agreement, one way or another. A good jailbreak is always edifying. Express agreement with reservations. Do these prison cells have windows? It might be better to peek through first. Or we can express disagreement. Some doors are locked for a reason. I think I'm gonna go with the middle option here. You're terribly responsible, aren't you? We'll have to do something about that, says the youthful naturalist with a grin. Of course you're right. Again. It's better to look before we leap. That's another reason I want to visit my dead mentor. He was very knowledgeable about these subjects when he was still alive. He peeks through a porthole to look outside. It would also be nice to shake the Presperate agents that have been following us. I really have no interest in their college of morality. My collegiate days, it's safe to say, are over. Okay, so we'll trace a route against the Z currents. I doubt this will take very long. Full steam ahead. We're sailing again. Let's try and avoid terrible beasts of the Navy, unless I can just go past it. Let's just steam on by. Oof, okay, this could be a little bit more spicy than I thought. Let's use the corvette of Her Majesty's Navy to exchange some pleasantries to drop that troubled waters down. Stop and rescue a ship that's going down to try and get more recovery here. Calm seas. Oh, rats. Scrabbling, scraping noises emerge from the ship's hold. It appears you have ratties stowaways. Let's negotiate with them. Hopefully they're reasonable rats. Okay, we're in Storm Bones. Gain Z-legs. This is how you gain Z-legs, by crossing certain lines in the Z. The sailors bundle themselves up in heavy peacoats. Nerves fray a little under the sound of ice floats bumping against the hull. The wind always blows from the north, and it's always uncomfortably cold. More than that, even the false stars seem to avoid this corner of the Neath. Nowhere else is gloomier. The world looks grey and lifeless, like a cheap tintype. Still relatively safe waters. Well, wind from the north? The northern reaches of the Z are choppy and vicious, unlike its usual placid surface. Rough winds blow. The air is cold and thin. The weather makes men fearful, or worse, mauled in. Work slows. The helmsman hand drifts. Let's help them. Get on deck and lead from the front, in spite of the bitter cold. You make a point of taking over tasks on deck where the wind and spray lashes against you. The sailors won't go as far as saying thank you, but when you descend below the decks for tea, you are greeted by relatively warm faces, and we're getting close to our destination here. Let's just steam on by this terrible beast of the Undersea. Okay, we're at 3. This is bad. If this gets too high, you just die. So I've got to be really careful. I know this from experience. I've died quite a lot at Z recently. Here we are at the tomb colonies. For posterity's sake, my dear, allow me to once more put pen to paper. Once ashore, your scandal will increase substantially, and you will not be able to leave until you complete the Youthful Naturalist's research. Well, here we go. Your scandal has increased to unthinkable. Remarkable to visit under less compulsory circumstances, although some unwanted attention still attends my reputation for merely charting the course. Do they know my movements so well in London? I shall have to bide my time as usual. On this occasion, however, I keep a little more animated company. My young colleague, who assures me that his deceased mentor was no less than a genius, is brimming with vivacity to see the cadaver again. I don't think my scandal has subsided enough for me to return. I'm at 9. Okay, let's reconnecting with the mentor. My colleague is charmed by scenery. Now, one thing I really like about the tomb colonies is everything is in the guise of you writing a letter or a note or a diary. My colleague is charmed by the scenery. What others might find dreary, he apparently considers most enlightening. He is a rare, vibrant figure in the muted and earth-toned picture that constitutes life, or should I say death, in the tomb colonies. It has been rather challenging, however, to locate his old mentor's whereabouts. The fellow's cadaver does not make social calls, and the other colonists struggle to remember his address. Of course, we persevered in our search. My dear, if you could have seen where we eventually discovered the body. Unlikely for most colonists to retire into a literal grave, but needs must. I suppose with such limited space. Indeed, the shoveling itself demanded that we sacrifice another afternoon, but my colleague never wearied. He kept chatting during our labour at the tomb about his growing anticipation for the reunion, an anticipation which was not, I must report, initially reciprocated by the bandaged corpse that we unearthed. I left my colleague to revive his mentor's faculties, which he assured me lively academic discourse would accomplish, whilst I took the groundskeeper aside to explain in the most reasonable terms. Consult the dusty ornithologist. I have rarely met a more disgruntled nor more disquieted individual. My colleague's mentor, an ornithologist with sterling credentials, has little interest in humouring me or anyone who isn't my colleague. His life's work, I have since gathered, received multiple blows from scholars at the university, from which he never fully recovered, but his death and retirement to the tomb colonies haven't completely diminished his status. We sought his advice. Despite his self-exile from academia, he remains a formidable mind. This used our favours with the tomb colonies. Good thing we had that. My scandal can't possibly go much higher. Oh no. Most bizarre conclusions derived from the most unorthodox debate. Impossible theories were propounded and experiments proposed that would warrant exile, indeed from any civilized society. I can now appreciate my young colleague's attachment to this ornithologist. They share a common grievance. Since my last letter, they have already cracked 2 pillars that support the natural sciences, and they're eroding a third as I write. Even in this forgotten colony, where every scandal fades from memory, we are not isolated enough to avoid the stares and gasps, the rumours that now multiply around us. His collection is impressive. We were invited to study his preserved specimens. Mistaken in assuming that his burial was less willful, our ornithologist is a gentleman scientist with wealth and influence to secure a respectable villa, which he keeps shuttered, however, when engaged in his studies with worms underground. What birds and beasts and beetles, his frostmoth collection alone is worth a tidy fortune. Not that we otherwise lack the opportunity to observe these fluttering insects. They are drawn to the key that my colleague carries. In conversation he will sometimes open his mouth only to find himself choking upon little wings. They surround him in such a cloud. It's been necessary to assemble certain tools. Our research continues to steadily march from the possible into the probable. Clearly skilled beyond the study of birds, we might of course have obtained these results in our own time without the ornithologist's assistance. At what cost? I can sense more than ever an anxious foreboding growing in my youthful colleague's demeanour. He startled in the square the other day when we passed a tomb colonist wearing a mask. It was simply a disguise for a masquerade ball, and not a very fashionable ball, even by this colony's standards. But he confided in me that he had mistaken it for masks worn by the Presper's agents. I have an even greater conviction now about why we needed to leave Klein as a stowaway. He is worried that we are not moving fast enough. Okay, an eager volunteer. There comes a time where talk must lead to action. Lady H remains against immense societal pressure committed to her cause and has already donated, beginning before and continuing after her death, the majority of her organs. She is the slightest husk that I have ever seen. Under observation by the ornithologist, she has agreed with a passion that lifts even her withered voice like a billowing sail to dedicate her last days to science. My colleague wished to say something. It is appropriate before a grand experiment to speak grandly, with an effort to prove in relation to a deeper transmutation the same principles on a deeper level. although it might look false on a more fickle level above. It blows here and there in the popular breeze, far away from the truth rooted below. At least he said something similar. I record the generalities faithfully enough, in spirit, to reflect his attempt at speech prior to the experiment. Despite his propensity for easygoing conversation, he is not the best public speaker, and I suspect, when interacting with others, that he might really prefer not to talk if he could trust science more. On the transmutation of the species. My dear, I must enclose a copy, one day when we publish our findings. They would sit proudly, transmuted themselves into a book in even the Dillman Club's exclusive library. Until then, I can only beg you to understand the necessity for elision in a letter carried through the post. Nevertheless, the sensations that I experienced and the insights that I gleaned from the experiment practically drive my pen across the page. So we can either lend my assistance, the light to see, the knife to cut, the key, or I can merely observe. It was enough to bear witness. I think I'm going to observe. From her desiccated corpse, oh my, Lady H must have weighed less than an urchin at the end. In total, the procedure lasted 9 hours, but my youthful colleague, as always, brought a dedication and alertness to the task that I find almost unparalleled amongst all the scholars of my acquaintance, from the greatest to the smallest, the most celebrated to the most obscure. His bandaged mentor became his student that day, even when he applied the key at the pivotal moment when our efforts would either be validated or undone entirely. His hand didn't tremble. An emergence is already rare to witness, and this emergence was like none in recorded history. I watched as the ornithologist extracted the frost moth. Okay, the results of the emergence. What is a frost moth's relation to the human matter from which it emerges? What beneath the microscope can one infer from its anatomy? My colleague consulted his notes from Klein. He has developed considerable skill in identifying persistence across species, although he still values my advice. If a human becomes something else, such as evolution needn't inherently determine, according to his observations, whether a deeper humanity cannot persist. Okay, so we can advise him to release the frost moth? Lest any vestige survive, my colleague agreed to let Lady H fly. I suggested that his mentor should keep the frost moth alive in captivity, while my colleague's experiment was a success. Until further research has been conducted, anything else would be ill-advised. Or I can recommend preserving its body as a specimen. Lady H is gone now, after all, and the ornithologist continues to collect. I feel like we should let the moth go, fluttering to join the swarms in the moonish light. I knew there was still hope, my colleague told me with the widest smile. He kept tossing the stone key up and down, catching it and laughing as we watched our experiment's outcome unfold. Of course, many tomb colonists will deteriorate to a terminal stage, just as many have done in the past, and engender frost moths of their own. What we demonstrated, my dear, is that this stage may be unlocked with the proper technique. Properly applied, Lady H could have remained a cocoon, as it were, for decades or even centuries more, absent our intervention. How intriguing. We have succeeded beyond every expectation. Inevitably, the situation has changed. My colleague now insists on financial support from the Dillman Club. He is convinced this experiment's result will force them to re-evaluate their position in his favour. Without funding, he will not reach the next horizon that his newly opened eyes perceive. Someone must report the news. It falls upon me to return. Before this letter reaches you, my dear, I'll likely be back in London again. This will reduce your scandal to 0, returning you to the captain's cabin so that you can chart another course across the Untersee. You pace your cabin alone. The youthful naturalist is still in the tomb colonies, waiting until his reputation is restored, and the dusty ornithologist has already retired underground again. Although, during his latest funeral, he encouraged you to set sail. He must indeed still have some influence. You are suddenly in heightened demand at salons and soirees. Calling cards are shipped directly to you overseas. Before he was buried, he beckoned you to his graveside. He wanted to tell you one last thing, the tentative title for his next publication, Unnatural Selection. Now, tell everyone else, he had said. Well, let's go back to London. And here we are, we're back at Wolfstack Docks. So, is it Ladybones Road for the Dolman Club? It is. A private meeting. Orchard House is quiet tonight. A light drizzle leaks outside, pattering against the windows in the library, where you meet with your patron. You notice that where once a certain bookcase stood, there is a new glass cabinet. It displays dried flowers from the Elder Continent. The implacable detective assures you it wouldn't be wise to touch them. Some are highly poisonous, and all are quite securely pinned in place. The youthful naturalist's results are hard to ignore, but for him to continue his research, he will need funding. Let's speak with the implacable detective. I anticipated this meeting. You're only 2 days later than my estimate. The implacable detective waits for you to finish, and slowly claps. Bravo, she says. Bravo. You know I could have you arrested for this. I'm a rational woman. I take all data into consideration. She opens a pocket-sized appointment book. Are you going to present your research, or is it still mine to the others? She continues, consulting available dates. It won't be a trial. Consider it a peer review. Your naturalist friend underwent a similar review, but you needn't worry. Our judgment is always fair. I will make certain of that. In due time, the Dillman Club will contact you again to discuss your findings in a more official capacity and to debate the youthful naturalist's funding. I guess that means it's going to be a card, which means it may or may not happen. Okay, so I've went through a few of these cards here, and I don't think anything's going to happen, so I'm going to assume that that is the end of the second part of Evolution. Please let me know if I'm wrong, or if it pops up while I'm editing this video, then I'll cut this out. But either way, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.